It was a month of quality, not quantity, in October. Let me tell you about the 8 books that I read this month. Hello friends, my name is Michaela. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where we talk about all things books, mainly thriller books. It is time for my October reading wrap up where I'm going to tell you all about the books that I read in October. It literally feels like yesterday that I did my September reading wrap up. It's going to be the end of the year before we know it. These are my absolute favourite videos to film, so I really hope you enjoy it. I would love it so much if you could hit the subscribe button if you're not already, as we're so close to 10k. I literally can't believe it. Anyway, I'm going to shut up. Let's get into what you're here for. Let's talk about the books. As always, we're going to start out with my reading stats. I will timestamp this down below. If you're not interested in my stats, just skim ahead a couple of minutes. I read 8 books in September. Now that is actually the least amount of books that I have read all year in 1 month, which I know is crazy. Like 8 is still a crazy number, but I had a very busy month. It was my wedding party this month and I had a lot going on, so I'm still so happy that I managed to read 8 books. And that is broken down by 25 of it being on audiobook hours and 2,151 pages. My mood breakdown will always look like dark, mysterious, intense because I mainly read thriller books. But there was emotional, hopeful, included in there this month, which we don't typically see. Light-hearted and adventurous, who is she? Now, interestingly, my pace looks something like this. The pie chart is mainly medium-paced books, which I don't think I've ever had that many medium-paced books, ever. All of the books I read were normal size, so between 300 and 499 pages, and they were all fiction. And now look at my genre breakdown. If you go back to my September reading wrap-up and compare it, that was all thriller. This is thriller, mystery, and horror, magical realism, romance, literary, historical, and fantasy. Honestly, who is she? And the format that I read them in, so I read 5 on my Kindle, 2 were audiobooks, and I read a physical book. I never read physical books. I want to say I've read less than 10 physical books. I am a Kindle girly, but I read a physical book this month, go me. Okay, now the best bit. My average rating was 3.69. I think that might be one of the highest average ratings that I have had all year. And that's what I meant when I said quality versus quantity. I might not have read as many books, but the ones I did read were really, really good. And we've got a 5-star to talk about. So let's get into the book reviews. We're going to talk about the books, not in rating order, but the order that I read them. And the first book that I started in October was Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. Oh my God, where's my book? I've got the book. I've got the sprayed edge edition. I'm so used to not holding the books that I completely forgot. But no, I've got the book and it's even the sprayed edge edition. Not Quite Dead Yet is Holly Jackson's first adult book. I think I've read everything by Holly Jackson except the reappearance of Rachel Price, but they are all YA books. And I'm a big fan of Holly Jackson. So when she announced that she was going to be doing her first adult book, obviously, I got it pre-ordered. This follows the story of Jet, who is a 27-year-old girl who's from quite a wealthy family. When one night she is attacked from behind and she's got no idea who did it. When she wakes up in the hospital, everyone around her is really sad and she's like, why are you all sad? I'm awake, I'm alive, what's going on? She then finds out that she's actually got a brain aneurysm and the chances are in the next 7 days she is going to die. So for her final 7 days, Jet decides that she is going to find out who killed her and why. Now, when I first started talking about this book, I said it's Holly Jackson's first adult book. And to call it an adult book would be a stretch. I'm not going to lie. It still felt very YA. And that's not a bad thing if you're picking up a YA book. But if you're picking up an adult book, you don't want to feel like it's a YA book. And I think that the only reason that it is being classed as an adult book is because Holly Jackson's chucked in a few swear words. Quite a lot of swear words, actually. I've got a potty mouth. I swear all the time. And like Amy's always telling me like, Michaela, why are you swearing so much? But do you know, like people, like I felt like she was swearing just for the fun of it. Like in places where she didn't need to be swearing, Holly Jackson was just chucking them in. And she did actually say that the reason that she wanted to write in the adult genre was so she could swear. Like, I don't know whether that was meant as a joke, but like she's took it quite literally. So I think that really affected my enjoyment of the story because it really did like pull me out of the story quite a lot. And sadly, I didn't end up loving this. I don't really like the like direction it took in. I didn't find it very shocking, but like at the same time, I didn't hate it. So for my rating, I have gone 2.5 stars straight down the middle. That felt pretty fair. And I'm actually quite sad about it. So this special edition is going to go to a new home. It's like the really nice sprayed edges and it's even signed. So somebody else is hopefully going to buy this and appreciate it more than I did. The next book I picked up was We Live Here Now by Sarah Pinborough. And I was hyped for this book because it just feels like the perfect spooky season read. I read Behind Her Eyes by this author and it is one of my favourite thriller books of all time. So obviously I went into this with really high expectations and so many of you guys as well told me how much you loved it. We Live Here Now follows the story of Emily and Freddie. They are a young couple who live in London, but sadly Emily has just had a really bad accident where she was in the hospital and she was in a coma. When she wakes up from the coma, Freddie is like, babe, we're moving out of London. I've bought us that dream house that we wanted in Devon, so we're moving there. And the way that the house was described, like, it's one of those big Victorian oldie worldy houses, like literally my dream house. But when Emily gets there, she starts to get a bad vibe from the house and she thinks it may be haunted. But Freddie isn't experiencing the same things as like Emily is in the house, and Emily is recovering from sepsis. And one of the side effects from having sepsis is like delusion, like imagining things that like aren't actually there. The first half of this book, I really, really enjoyed it. And then the second book, this is totally a me problem though. Like I'm just putting it out there now. Like I just don't think haunted house stories are for me. Like I don't love paranormal stories anyway. There is a few that I've really enjoyed, but like sadly the second half of this, it just really lost me. But that is totally a me problem. And the reason I love doing my monthly reading wrap-ups is I'm going to tell you what I thought of a book, but like you could be hearing that and thinking, oh my God, I love a haunted house story. That sounds so good. And then like you still go and pick it up and it becomes one of your favorites. Like talking about bad book reviews, even though this isn't bad, is just as important as talking about good book reviews. So yeah, not a favourite, sadly. I gave it 3 stars. And like, they're the lowest ratings. Those 2 books are the lowest ratings that I've had all month. The only way is up from here. And I did actually read this book in a reading vlog, which I will put up here. So if you want to go and check that out and see like my live thoughts as I was reading it, I'd love it so much if you did. The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown has been on my TBR, I want to say since like January, the start of the year maybe. I filmed a vlog where I went to Cardiff and I was with Carly from the Pastel Bookshelf. I'll link that vlog here, like go deep in the archives. And I said to her, if you could recommend me any book, what would you recommend? And we were in Waterstones and I said, I'll go and buy it now. And she chose me this. And I knew going into this that it wasn't really going to be my thing. And it was going to be like a book, like, because it deals with like magical realism. And I suppose it's classed as fantasy as well. And I am not like one of those girlies, sadly. But I had an open mind going into it. And in this book, we meet Cassie. Cassie lives in New York, I think. The setting of this book was fantastic. And she works in a bookstore. When one day, one of her customers passes her a book just before he passes away. And it's called The Book of Doors. When she opens it up, it says, any door is every door. And this is a magical book that can essentially take you anywhere. But she realizes very quickly there are a lot of people out there who want this book and they will do anything in their power to take it from her. So like, what has she got herself involved in? This is one I did do completely on audio because I knew that I would find it difficult to read and take in. And I think the audiobook was absolutely incredible. If you are intimidated by this book, I would really recommend the audio. And I took my time with it. Like, I had it on 1.5 speed, and usually I'm a 2x speed girly. What audiobook speed do you have your books on? Let me know. And I was invested in this story. My God, did I love this story. There were so many directions it took that I just never saw coming. And like, I think if I'd read the blurb, it probably would have told me, but I'm erring on the side of caution not to tell you, because I do think you should just go into this book knowing what I've just told you. But, a lot of this book went over my head. I guess you could say, like, it's magical realism. Is it a bit of sci-fi? I don't know. I feel this way about Blake Crouch's books. They're too clever for me. And like, that's a me problem. That is a very much a me problem. And there were parts of this book that I just didn't understand. I didn't. And then, do you know, when you finish a book and you're like, okay, I don't really understand the ending. So like, I was on Google and I was getting them to explain it to me. And like, it did go in eventually, but it did go over my head, like, as I was like listening to it. I can still appreciate this book for what it was. Like, Gareth Brown, you are a talented author. Wow. I can't wait to pick up another book from Gareth Brown, and I absolutely will be picking up another one. So I found this really difficult to rate because I was like, technically, I absolutely loved everything about this book, but I just didn't quite understand it. And I just looked at my story graph and I gave it 4 stars, but I actually think that's wrong. I should have given it a 4.5. It wasn't a 5-star. It's a book that's going to stay with me for a very, very long time, and a book that I think I will think about often, but I can't give it 5 stars for that reason. But I am going to give it 4.5 stars. I'm upping my rating. For my online book club, and also mine and Emma Reads Crime in-person book club, I took a bit of a risk this month by picking The Butcher's Daughter by David Demchuk and Corinne Lee Clark. This is the story of Mrs. Lovett. Mrs. Lovett is the pie maker from Sweeney Todd. I'm pretty sure that most of us know who Sweeney Todd is. And she was baking the humans and putting them into the pies. And this is described as the untold story of Mrs. Lovett. Mrs. Lovett has always been a side character when it comes to Sweeney Todd, and this book is giving her the voice. I didn't know that Sweeney Todd wasn't a real person or like a real story until after I read this book. That's crazy. I was convinced that it was like based on true events. So this is obviously set in Victorian era London, and we get to meet Mrs. Lovett from when she's a child all up until she meets Sweeney Todd. And she doesn't actually meet Sweeney Todd until about 65% of the way through this book. And like, the whole book is told through mixed media. So it's told through letters, it's told through like newspaper clippings, and I absolutely love that about it. Like, yeah. I read this on my Kindle, and I did find some of the mixed media elements really hard to read on my Kindle. So just bear that in mind, because you can't make the font any bigger on like the mixed media elements of it. And like, I have my Kindle font on too. So like, my font's really small anyway. And like, I was struggling to read some of it. And I paid £10 for the Kindle book. $9.99 if we want to be specific. I absolutely love reading about Victorian era London anyway. I'm also a very character driven reader, and I love getting to know a character like in depth. And I feel like we did get that with this book. I don't think it needed to be quite as long as what it was. Like I said, we don't actually meet Sweeney Todd until well over halfway through, which I was actually shocked at. As I was reading, I was thinking, bloody hell, when are we actually going to meet him? I did do a little bit of this on audio. I want to say I did like 20% on audio. It was when me and Amy were in the car. We were driving back from Cardiff. So the audiobook was really good as well if you're like intimidated by the actual size of this. I bloody love this book. I thought it was incredible. I thought, yeah, just such a character-driven story, but it didn't go down very well at book club. So at the in-person book club, I think the average rating out of us all was like 2.8. But then on the flip side, in the online book club, I think around like most people gave it like 4 or 5. There was a couple of 3s, but most people loved it. So really divided opinions. And I gave it 4 stars, and I would really recommend this book if what I've just told you sounds interesting at all. The next book I'm going to speak to you about is not just my favourite book of the month, but I think it might be. I'm hesitant to like 100% say, but I think it might be my best book of 2025 so far. I know. And it is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. Guys, I got an arc of Alice Feeney's next book. This is coming out in January. This is the one that I read physically, because obviously this is an arc. Oh my God. Oh my God. Do you know what? I got an arc of Beautiful Ugly in 2024, which was coming out in January 2025. And that ended up being my best book of 2024. So like, how funny that like Alice Feeney can do no wrong in my eyes. So this follows the story of a woman called Eden Fox. Eden Fox has just moved to Cornwall with her husband. They are very wealthy. They bought this beautiful house up on the cliffside and she is out on a run. She gets home, she goes to let herself in the house and her key doesn't work. Her husband comes to the door and is like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Stop messing around, let me in, I'm your bloody wife." When a woman that looks exactly like Eden then comes to the door and says, "I'm his wife, who are you?" And then we also get the point of view of a woman from 6 months earlier named Birdie who inherited the house. The house is called Spyglass. And we're getting her story as she finds a letter from a company that claims that they can predict the day you're going to die. So how are those two stories going to weave together? I read this book in 24 hours. For somebody that doesn't read paperback books, because I do most of my reading in bed, and like I find reading physical books, like when I'm lying down, really difficult. But I still read this in 24 hours because I could not put it down. Alice Feeney just has the most incredible way of keeping you hooked throughout the whole book. Her pacing, the twists, and it's like the perfect length. It's like not too long either. So it's 310 pages, which I think is like perfect length for a thriller book. Like it didn't drag on at any point. Were there a few plot holes? Maybe. But like I was like, I can't see, I'm blind. I'm blind to the potholes. So yeah, I'm just pretending they don't exist. And I'm just taking the story for what it was. And I just had the most incredible time reading this book. Reading books and feeling like this makes me realise why I love reading so much. So all I'm saying is add this book to your pre-order list because you're going to want to read it. Take a day of annual leave, because you're going to want to sit down and devour this book in one sitting. Okay, switching up the genres for a second. Can we please take a second for these beautiful sprayed edges? Because I listened to Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood on audio. I can't with these edges. Like the cat, obsessed. Now this is a cozy fantasy. Me and my friend Sarah went to a book signing in Liverpool to see Lucy Jane Wood, and I was like, I still haven't read Rewitched. So after the book signing I was like, I need to read it, like as a matter of priority, because I really want to read her next release, which is called Uncharmed. I actually did vlog that book event as well, so I'll put the link for that video here. I'm giving you loads of homework, guys. If you've not gone and watched these videos yet, please do. Rewitched follows the story of Belle. Belle is just turning 30. She works in a bookshop. And she just feels like she feels like she's stuck at a crossroads with her life, and it isn't really where she thought she would be at 30 years old. Bella's a witch, but magic is the last thing on her mind with the way she's feeling when she gets a letter from the local, what are they called? I think the coven of witches, saying you now need to come and prove to us, now you've turned 30, that you are worthy of your magic and you are using it for good things. This was just wholesome vibes. Like it was kind of a no thoughts, head empty audiobook that I could have on in the background, like while I was in the shower, while I was cooking, and like just getting about my day-to-day life. And it had found family, and yeah, it was pure cozy fantasy, very low stakes. It's probably one that I won't think about often, but like I had a good fun time when I was reading it, so I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. That seems harsh. I know that seems harsh, but like 4 stars and above are like books that like I would recommend with chest. Like I wouldn't recommend this with chest. But if you're a fan of cozy fantasy, definitely check it out. Did I say if I gave this 5 stars? I don't think I did. 5 stars, obviously. The next book I read was another recommendation that I got from Carly from the Pastel Bookshelf, and that is The Book of Witching by C.J. Cook. Clearly in October, I was in like a historical witchy spooky fantasy mood. I mean, perfect. It's the perfect time of year to read those books, to be fair, and I didn't do that intentionally. The Book of Witching is told in two timelines. One of the timelines is in present day, and one of the timelines is in 1594. 1594, what good memory I have. In the 1594. 1594? I don't think that's how you say 1594, Michaela. Timeline. We meet a woman named Alice Balfour. I feel like she's a really famous woman, actually. I'm sure she is. Anyway, she lives in Orkney and she has just been accused of witchcraft, and her punishment is she's going to be burned at the stake. And then in the present day timeline, which is set in Glasgow, we meet our main character who is called Clem, and her daughter has just been found on a beach in Orkney with severe burns and is now in a coma. So how are these two stories connected? What has Orkney got to do with it? And how are these two women that are separated by 400 years connected? I was locked into this book. Like the first 30%, I was like, wow, this book is incredible. I'm going to love it. The middle bit lost me a little bit and I had to switch to audio. I do that quite a lot. If I'm struggling reading a book physically, I will switch to the audio to like try and bring me back in. And it worked. It brought me back in. And then from the 70% mark onwards, parts of this book left me shooketh. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I was very much more invested though in the present day timeline than the 1500s timeline, which is interesting because when I spoke to Carly about this book, she said that she was more interested in the historical timeline, whereas I was the opposite. Some of this book though, right, it did pull me out a little bit because like, I don't know, when I think of like the Book of Witching, that kind of book, and like obviously we were getting historical timelines, then present day, like there was a mention of Shein. And it really pulled me out of the story because I just don't know, I just wasn't thinking I was going to get a mention of Shein like when I picked this book up. And like TikTok as well. And I don't know how I feel about it when like books mention like TikTok and stuff. I feel like it like puts them, it ages the book and it puts them in that kind of time frame. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. How do you feel about it? But overall, I really, really enjoyed this book and I gave it 4 stars. And the last book that I read in October was 7 Reasons to Murder Your Dinner Guests by KJ Whittle. I actually met this author at Harrogate Crime and Thriller Festival and she gave me a copy of this book, so thank you so much. The premise of this really excited me because 7 strangers are invited to a dinner. They've got no idea who has invited them, and then when they get there, they're served this fancy meal and an envelope, and in that envelope it says, you will die at age and the age that they're going to die. Obviously, like they think this is a bit of a prank. This isn't actually going to happen. But then as time goes on, these people actually start dying on the days that they have been predicted their death. So like, is it a case of somebody's out there killing them? Or is it a case of we're going to lean into magical realism territory? I don't think I can tell you because I feel like that would be a spoiler. But I feel like it's probably going to impact if you do actually pick this book up. So that's a difficult one. You get the point of view in this book of like all of the characters as well, which I did actually enjoy because they're all very different people from very different backgrounds and they all have their own individual stories. But like what connects them? Why were they all invited to this dinner party together? I enjoyed this book, but I feel it felt a lot longer than what it actually was. I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't think we need to be this long. I feel like we could shave some pages down here. But I've just had a look and it says that it's only 282 pages long. And I feel like it felt a lot longer than that. Although I did read it on my Kindle and sometimes like the pages are weird, aren't they? But it says the paperback's 280 pages. So I don't know. I feel like if this was like a 200-page book, I would have loved it a lot more. I just don't think the story warranted on its own to be that long. I kind of wish we had another like side plot to keep the plot driving forward, keep it moving forward, rather than just focusing on or the whole book being about these notes. I thought some of it was a bit predictable and some of it wasn't. So 3.5 stars. I feel like that's fair. Like I would recommend this book, but like not with chest. I did think the writing was good though, and I will be interested to see what KJ Whittle comes out with next. Okay guys, that's it. That's how my month went. How did your October go? Let me know in the comments what was your favourite book of October so I can add it to my TBR. Thank you so much for watching. I shall see you in my next video. And if you're not subscribed, please, 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 it would mean so much. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.